Sarah's on here, Eddie's on here, Emily's on here. So you guys should, I mean, I think we all pretty much know each other on here. Including the professional Maya.
The professional. I feel like an assassin.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Ninja.
Yet another new title for you.
Exactly.
Huh?
I like it.
Yeah, I like
Oh,
it too.
good. And Ninja Associate Professor. And for their education still. So I've got links on here to
Oh, our podcast.
the podcast because it's really getting some of those people on here too. And I'm trying to post this to the chat now when we have those people on it. And also there's that, and we also have Steve and Maya's survey to take after you watch this. And actually, if you watch the podcast, you can also fill that out for the podcast. I need like 7 more windows to open. I think that Maya can go ahead and tell you first here.
Yeah, so I can get us started, but especially because we're a small group, and I know most of you pretty well. I hope this will become conversation, but I had a couple ideas about sort of buckets we could think about in terms of mental health, and then see sort of what, where we want to take the conversation from there. I think something I've talked about with this group before, we talked about a little bit last July also, was the different kinds of mental health support there are out there, right? Yeah. There's what we talk about a lot, especially in social work, is encouraging people in self-care, right? The things you do to take care of yourself. And then there is the bucket of peer support, much like we're doing today, right? What you get from other people that you have something in common with, whether it's cystinosis or something else, but right, finding that peer support. And then the last thing, and I think what people think of as traditional therapy, right, is professional support. Why might you seek out, someone who's trained to provide some kind of therapy for you? So those are the big buckets, right? And we can talk about sort of what different folks do. I'm actually really curious to hear from you guys about your experiences. And then the other piece to think about is, what are the kind of things that might make you want to seek support? What kind of situations, what kind of feelings you might be having that might make you say, oh, maybe I need a different level of support, or I need to do something different for myself, right? So we have sort of the everyday stuff of just coping with what's going on in our lives. Difficult things happen, upsetting things, frustrating, sad things. So we have worry and grief and sadness and all of that. That's sort of normal, right? It's what everybody experiences. And I always think it's really important that we not label those as a problem. It's a feeling, and you go through it and you get support and you move on, right? But then there are other times where you have things that feelings don't resolve easily, where you might have real anxiety and anxiety symptoms, and sometimes even panicky feelings and worry that gets overwhelming, that gets in the way of your everyday. Or you might have feelings of depression, of being stuck, of feeling hopeless, that then really it makes it hard for you to participate in your usual activities and the things you want to do. So that's when it becomes a problem, right? It's not just your everyday, oh, I feel a little sad today, but I really feel stuck. I can't get myself going. there are some things where there's a behavior that's getting us into trouble, right? It could be things like, you think about alcohol and drugs, you think about smoking, you could think about overeating, any behavior that's getting you into trouble. And I think for people with health conditions, and I have a chronic health condition too, so, I live it too, that idea that I'm not doing the stuff I need to do, or I'm actually doing something that's undermining my health. How do I change that behavior? So we might think of going to therapy for that. Like, how do I get myself to a place of taking better care of myself? And the last piece I think is really important, especially for folks who have been through some really scary medical stuff and other life things as well, is really thinking about this idea of trauma. And that's become much more recognized in the mental health fields as a way of understanding what people have gone through. So if you've had some really scary, and medical teams are starting to understand that it's not just, veterans who have PTSD and, people who have been car accidents or crime victims, but that some of this ongoing medical stuff, endless needle sticks, endless whatever, that can be its own form of trauma too. And I think it's really important in this group that we kind of recognize that. So those are the buckets I was kind of thinking about. And otherwise, I really want to hear from you all about sort of your experiences, what's been helpful, what's not been so helpful, and maybe you can sort of, learn from each other. I gave Brian and Karen a list of questions, so we can walk through those, or we can just, tell me what you're thinking about based on where we've gone so far.
Well, I just have the PTSD, how often has that, how long ago did that start to be part of the thinking? I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it.
I've been reading and thinking about it honestly over the last 10 years, even
Really?
regarding
Okay.
medical stuff, because there was some really interesting things actually out of Mount Sinai here in New York about PTSD and adherence to medication. Because the idea is, and think about it in your own lives, every time you go to take your meds, and you guys take a lot of them, right? It's a reminder, right? For some people, that's almost like a PTSD trigger, right?
Okay.
So in some ways, and I'm not saying everyone has that experience to that level, but I think it's worth recognizing. That's a reminder every day, every couple of hours even, right? I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. Now, if you're feeling resilient and good, it may be like, okay, this is what I do every day. I think it was Steve years ago told me, it's just like brushing my teeth. Or maybe that was Emily. One of you did.
It might have been me. I think I remember that.
Right? So for some people, it becomes normal. But for other folks, sometimes, or especially if it's a moment that you're struggling, those kind of things can really bring up, right, all of the other worries. Yeah, Emily.
So I have thinking about it, I never thought that, I think I have PTSD from medical, but the first time that I ever had a panic attack during a procedure was when, my first kidney was failing, and they had to do a PICC line. And for the PICC line procedure, I was wide awake. And I never experienced, I was always a chill patient. I was always like, okay, do what you have to do. Mm-hmm. And now sitting here talking to you guys and thinking about it, I did have that experience that now I don't, I did have a PTSD, because they always would put me to sleep with every procedure. I was, even some biopsies too, I would always fall asleep. But they told me, you're going to be awake. And that already, scared me a little bit. So when they were doing they cover you in like a blue mat. And I'm not claustrophobic, but that already. And then they're like, okay, we're going to start, and when they said that, I put my hand on it and they had to start all over. And I started hyperventilating and crying, and I had no control over what I was feeling. So yeah, it's something that happened, and looking back, I think that what something had triggered it, which was probably the needle, and then when I was younger, that's where they would take blood. When they couldn't find any veins, they would hold me down and do my neck. So I thinking here now, I think that's what might have triggered it, because as a young child, I would be held down, and then now I'm over here, I'm not sleeping, I'm taking this procedure of a PICC line, and I grabbed everything, and we had to start over. So that was an experience that, thinking about it now, I think it was PTSD. And I was like, and I hear it, I see it a lot online. I'm like, oh, no, I don't have that. No, that never happens, you know? But sitting here thinking about that situation, I think it was.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's certainly even, and not
and
everybody,
it's
look, not
definitely
everybody that faces something traumatic has the post-traumatic response.
Right.
Post-traumatic is when you relive it, you can't let go of it, right? But I think even if you don't have that, it still forms a deep impression. You carry those things with you. And, but usually when we think about, lots of things in life are stressful. We hit lots of stressors, but usually we bring in, oh, I have some way to cope, and you balance it out. What makes something trauma is when it overwhelms your usual coping mechanisms, right? Like
like the breathing and the looking at what they're doing. Like, I think the fact that I couldn't see, because I always watch them do the IV. I always like to see what they're doing.
Right.
And the fact that I couldn't see what they were doing, I think I panicked, and so.
Well, and it speaks to, I think, we like to know we're in control of situations, right? So when does anxiety happen is when we feel like, oh, I don't have control.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know what's going to happen, or I know it's going to happen, but I can't do anything about it.
Yeah. That's like when I had my my heart failure, and they had to drain the fluid out of my lungs. They basically put me on they put themselves on the other side. They showed me the jar they're going to drain the fluid out of. And then they cut 2 slits in my back, and they're sticking a tube up there. And they said, this is just going to take a few minutes. And I'm like, oh, this is taking too long. I don't think I can take it. I don't think I can take it. They're trying to take my mind off of it, which is making it worse. So then I'm like, I'm going to faint. You need to stop. I'm going to faint. He's like, just keep going. I'm like, no, you have to stop. I can't do this anymore. And I don't know. I think it was people were helping me at first. They just couldn't keep my mind off of it, because behind me, they're draining fluids out of my back. So, and then the second guy who came in and helped me when they had to do it again to drain more fluid, he was a nurse, and he actually held my hand and was asking me questions about my life to keep my mind off of it. The other people didn't really know what to ask me, so it made it worse.
Well, that really, that kind of touches on that, the self-care piece that you hear a lot about now, this idea of like mindfulness or distraction and calm. And, sometimes I make fun of that stuff a little bit, because I'm so not I'm not a mindful person. I'm like, give me my coffee. Let me keep going. Let me keep busy. Right. That's you guys know me a long time. That's how I cope. But the idea of what are the techniques I can use to help myself relax. So whether it's talking, holding someone's hand, deep breathing, whatever it is, for either a stressful situation like that, or just in your everyday life, right? Does anybody else do anything on a regular basis?
I have a husband who has real issues, and he does the mindfulness thinking. He does meditation tapes. He does, he tries the like sunlight therapy. And as you said, I am more like, okay, let's get on with this and deal with this, as opposed to him who has all these things he tries to do to make him feel better. And in my mind, it's like you said, get up and do things. But I have to, I have to be cognizant that this is how it helps. This is what helps him. And it's a whole different thing than what helps me.
Right. And everybody has to find their own kind of recipe, right?
Yeah.
Other people have things that they do every day or do when they're feeling stressed.
it kind of changes day to day for me. Most of, I guess most of the time, I'll take a walk or a couple walks. A lot of times, doing something physical that
Oh, that's nice.
that takes me out of my head, where I don't have to think about anything. I just have
Yeah.
to just focus on the walking. I guess it's the same concept as mindfulness, or meditation. It's kind of like a walking meditation. Um, yeah, so I do that without any goal exactly how long it's going to last, or where I'm going, and that usually helps. And then sometimes I do meditate. Like I have like on YouTube, I have like a series of videos, or I'll look up a new video to do some sort of meditation, like
Uh-huh.
laying down meditation. Um, yeah, that helps. Playing guitar helps a lot. Um, I've played music since I was 14. Yeah. So, and sometimes trying to write something, or playing something I know, or just finding some random like guitar tab and playing some random song. Um, that again, it kind of depends, I guess, on the day. Like sometimes it will be kind of similar to the walking thing, where if I'm picking like if I'm picking a song to play that I didn't write, or that I'm not trying to write, then it's more like I'm trying to get outside my own head, and playing somebody else's music as opposed to my own is a nice way to get outside of get outside of my head.
Yeah, I like listening to music too. Music helps me. And now that I'm older, trying to find humor in things. If I can't laugh about something eventually, then I know it's like I'm really out of it, you know? Like
Yeah,
just to find anything funny, just to calm me down a bit helps me a lot.
I
But
I hear you. I'm the same way. I most I try to make light of most things.
yeah, yeah. And I know I'm bad when I can't laugh about something until eventually, you know, like after a while. So
Yeah.
that helps me.
Other people, thoughts?
It's
do?
it's kind of hard for me to think of things I do to deal with things, I guess, because my whole life, you know, when I was a young kid, my parents told me I was going to have to go through a lot of medical stuff or whatnot. And it just I became so accustomed to it that if I know I'm going to have to go through something and I know it's going to be bad, I just kind of tell myself, all right, well, here we go again. You got to do what you got to do. And I guess when I was younger, I used to write a lot of poetry, and I was probably in my 20s at the time, and that seemed to help me out a lot. But it never seemed to be related to cystinosis or medical stuff. It was more towards just life experiences.
Right.
And the life experiences, I couldn't really connect to cystinosis or anything. And I don't know. And then I've always had dogs, so
I
if
was
I
going
ever
to
needed
say,
to
you
talk to
talked about your
somebody,
animals. That's a big
yeah,
one.
I would talk to my animals at night, you know, and just kind of tell them what's going on, and then lay their head on my knee or whatnot, and you know, I'd get it out of my system, and that's another big way I used to cope with things. But it's like the medical stuff, no matter how hard or how bad it was, that's never stuck with me. It was just like, for example, something that kind of bothers me still to this day is after my last transplant, while I went through the evaluation, they found a aortic root aneurysm. And I had to go through that. So that took me longer to recover than a transplant. And then after my transplant and dialysis and all that stuff, and I contacted people I knew through work, people I've actually trained before even, you know, were pretty far in their career, and reaching out to them like, hey, I've been out of work. I see you have something open, and just being rejected because of the things I've been through for my last transplant. But they actually knew my story from working with me. I was open and honest about my transplants and everything. I never really talked about cystinosis much to them, but I guess I told them the story more towards kidneys failing transplant, and thinking they'd be happy to have me because they knew my skills, and then being rejected and being rejected and rejected. That's something that still kind of bothers me, because right before I had to start dialysis and get back on the transplant list, I was to the point where I could basically go work wherever I wanted. And then it kind of became, wait, nobody wants to even give me a chance to come in on a basic level. And I guess that screws with my head a little bit.
Yeah, but that's genuinely frustrating, right? And it's not just about, right? It's not just about, I don't think we should think about this about just, does cystinosis affect your mental health? The reality is your mental health gets affected by lots of stuff. And obviously the cystinosis and transplants and all that stuff has a huge impact. But the rest of our lives, right? The way people are able to go to school, hold jobs, pursue careers, pursue relationships, all of that stuff, right, brings its own up and downs, and also interacts with the health stuff. So you kind of have to look at both of those sides, right? And not being able to do work that you love is incredibly frustrating, right? And brings sadness, brings anger. And so what do you do with those feelings when you have them?
Wow.
There's no easy answer, of course.
But I mean, it's kind of hard because I kind of got used to the fact. So I'm trying to pursue a second career, which a lot of y'all know about. But I still do work on the side. So I haven't given up. It's like I do little catering jobs, personal chef jobs, but with the COVID, of course, it's really slowed down. But
well, this is kind of an interesting moment in time, right? Because everybody's having to reimagine their work lives, their regular lives. So, I think that now probably other people are feeling what you're feeling too. Like, what do I do now? Right?
Yeah. And having friends that you're used to seeing and helping you.
Yeah.
And you're not, and you don't see them. That it's, I think this time frame has been like extremely trying, well, for me anyway, because I get some of my like ability to handle things through my friends. They're like my support. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
That part easy.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Okay.
That we live in an age where at least all that online connection like this is much more part of our lives than it used to be. But online gaming communities have been around for a while. I mean, and you think about, on the cystinosis side of things, just being able to connect with other people, having the internet in general has been amazing, right? This didn't, this didn't exist.
Right.
So, there's something to be said, obviously, for in person and being able to see other human beings in person. I saw my cousins yesterday for the first time in like months and months and months. And even though I've been talking on the phone and to be with people, even though we had to elbow bump, was better than not being with people.
Right.
But however you get that, Karen, I think you put it really nicely, however you kind of get your fix of other folks, right?
Yeah.
That peer interaction is super important, whether it's specifically for, hey, I'm looking for support, or it's just, you know, I want to chat, I want to game, I want to do something, I want to have a fun interaction. It's a really important piece, you know.
Yeah.
And I think when we think about, you know, how do you help other folks with cystinosis, it's like, how do we find those folks who aren't getting that connection and pull them in?
We're trying to, aren't we?
I know.
People. Where are our people?
It is Saturday afternoon, I guess. The sun must be shining somewhere.
Oh boy.
Not here, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's hot.
Is there anybody on the call that actually used any kind of professional support and therapy? And like, what kind of experiences have you had? Are you willing? If you're willing to share.
Who's going? Okay. So I finally hit like rock bottom when Robbie passed, and I looked for someone. I had a list already because like in December I had really bad news about my health, and that just kind of like you know, it was just frustrating. It's like I'm fighting, but there's no point of fighting. It's just gonna win. You know, I had that mindset since December, and then like I've been depressed since December, and then Robbie passes, and it's just like you know, but I finally hit rock bottom, and Elijah was like, why aren't you happy anymore? Like when he said that, I was like, whoa, you know, like he's noticing. So I went after my social worker with my transplant house. I have a great team, and they gave me a list of people, but none of them really fit what I was looking for. And there was this one lady who came to my church. She's a psychiatrist, but she lives in Brazil, you know, and it's like it's hard. You can't do consultation if she's in Brazil. But you know, I have her on Instagram, and I'm like, are you doing consultations online? Because I wanted someone that speaks both my languages, which is English and Portuguese.
Yeah.
I wanted someone that is familiar with my faith as well. And I didn't find that on the list that the doctors had given me. So I let it go. And then a couple weeks ago, actually, is when I went after her. I asked her, I took that first step. I was like, you know, do you take consultation? And she's like, yeah, and she's working with me, and yesterday was my 5th therapist session.
Mm-hmm.
She's working with me. She's letting me do like journaling, which is way out of my comfort zone because I don't like drawing. It's not that I don't like it. I'm not good at it. I don't think I'm good at it. And I'm like, my self-esteem is like here, and she's trying to open my eyes to like how important I am, you know, and all the things I've been through, and you know, I'm still here, and I've been listening to a lot of Elton John, and so she's helping me. I did like it. I'm liking it. It's out of my comfort zone to like speak to someone about all my problems. I'm usually the one helping.
Mm-hmm.
I'm usually, you know,
Yeah.
I'm usually the one listening. But
Yep.
but I think it's been good. Like I'm grieving right now, and she's like, you know, take your time. And like everyone I talk to is like, okay, get over it. He's dead, blah blah blah. But it's not. It's not like that, you know.
It's not how grief works.
It's not how grief works, and but she's helping me, and it's nice that she listens, and she gives me feedback.
Yeah.
So like I've been having really sad days where I don't want to do anything. I just want to lay down and cry. It's like, you know, respect yourself for it. If you know, don't hold it in, because I've been having panic attacks because of that, because I've held everything in for so long. And she's working with me, and I really like it. And I did do this before. I've done it when I was 16, and I've done it when I was 9, we did our whole family had to do counseling because I cut my catheter, my dialysis catheter. I cut it, and they took that as suicide. But I don't think it was suicide. I think it was more of I was just sick and tired of dialysis, and I wanted to go do the things that my friends were doing.
Yeah.
But they did take that as suicide at 9, and we did family counseling, and it actually did help our family. Talking, understanding my feelings, everybody's feelings, because so long I felt like a burden, to my family and all that. And it helped me realize I'm not, and now as an adult, taking that first step to actually needing help, it was hard actually, but I did it, and I'm glad I did it. So
It is a hard, it's a really hard, I'm so proud of you, Emily.
yeah, I know.
It's
It's
a
like
hard,
for so long, it was like I've been that strong person, and she just reminded me it's okay not to be,
right. And I wonder, I wonder if in part, because for all of you, right, you really get that message that you have to be strong, you're going to face tough stuff, you have this challenging illness. So you sort of get yourself in that mindset, oh, I have to be tougher than everybody
Yeah.
else, right? But then it doubles the challenge, which there's already a lot of stigma around saying, hey, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm having a hard time, or even, hey, I'm feeling like I don't want to do this anymore. It's a really hard thing to admit that no matter what. And I almost wonder if it kind of raises that barrier for you guys because you've got that message of I've got to be tough. Your doctors, I know from working with some of them, right? They're so focused on they want to get you through. They want to get you better. They want to keep you healthy. And so to have to tell them, I'm not feeling so good about this, almost feels like you're going to let them down. So a lot of people won't talk to their physicians, even though you trust them, because, right, it's sort of the flip side of like, yeah, but I want to show them I'm doing a good job and I don't want to put the pressure.
And it's
So
like, it's not only the doctors too, but everyone around me. I want Elijah to see that I'm strong. I want my cystinosis community to see that I'm strong, but I'm not Superwoman.
yeah. But that's the other message people need to hear, that it's okay to say, hey, I need help.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that you said that Elijah noticed, because one of the things when we talk about like, why do people, behave in any certain way, right? And
I
some
don't
of it,
even, when he noticed because he said my voice changed.
interesting.
He said that my voice changed, like, why don't you sound happy anymore? And I'm like, whoa, like my kid is noticing that I'm not this, I'm not feeling good. And it's not just feeling good like nausea. I'm not happy. And he said that. He's like, why aren't you happy anymore? And I'm like, okay, I need to change something. And like I told my psychiatrist, I was like, I want the old Emily back. And something she said was like, you're not gonna get her back.
Right.
Because that was in the past. You're gonna get an improved. You're gonna improve. You're gonna be the best you, and that's where I want to get. And I'm ready to get there. I'm ready to, and she's gonna work with some exercises with me. She has questions for me to answer during the week, for me to journal, to write it down. And one question she had was, what are you passionate to be, and what are you passionate about doing? And I'm like, I can't think of anything. I couldn't think of anything. And then she's like, Emily, you've been through so much. Look in the mirror and say that you're passionate about being victorious, about overcoming. And then I was like, wow, I am. And it's things that she's opening my eyes to, things that I should be seeing about myself. That I don't. And she also asked, like, what are you best at? And I'm like, right now I'm not good at anything. Like, I'm making so many mistakes at work. I'm not good at anything right now. And then, but she's helping me to see what I am good at. And, you know, I think we do need that push, a professional push, not someone that, you know, a best friend is awesome, support. Okay, but you need, I need that push to open my eyes and you know, be passionate about life again.
Right.
And I know I have Elijah to take care of, and I know I have this and that. I have all this responsibility, but I couldn't get moving. Like, almost like I didn't care, you know. Like, it's not that I didn't care. It's just that I had no energy.
Yeah.
I had no energy to care.
Yeah.
And she was explaining to me, like, these anxiety attacks that I've been having, it sucks the energy out of me.
Oh, yeah.
It's like running a marathon,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And right before this meeting, I was sleeping, and my hemoglobin is good. It's like there's no explanation to why I've been sleeping so much. She's like, Emily, it's the energy that it sucks the energy out of you. And, you know, I'm seeing that now. And, you know, she gave me some meditation things, and also talking to other people who are in the same boat has been helping too. Like, we've been kind of helping each other, like anxiety attacks and stuff like that. And like, I have a person I can, you know, text at 3 a.m. Like, I'm going to tell an experience I had that my sugar was low, and Robbie in my dream woke me up, and I went down and I just started bawling and bawling and bawling and crying and crying. But I shouldn't go down the stairs when my sugar is low, but I did. And she just said, like, when something like that happens, just let it go, just cry. And like, I have to respect myself to feel everything, that I'm human. I'm not Superwoman. And I just have to feel everything about grief. I need to go through the grieving process. I can't skip the grieving process. It's just gonna bury me deeper. So I am grieving, and I'm allowing myself to grieve.
And claiming that is so important, you know, just to
Yeah.
claim that space is really important. And to be able
Yeah.
to say, like, A, I need support, or B, I need to be not around anybody right now, or I need time for myself, and being able to kind
Yeah.
of, whatever it is
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, like we had people over on last Sunday, and I had no will whatsoever to be around those people. I locked myself in my room and cried on Sunday for no reason. I was crying. And I'm like, and I was like, there's COVID going around. It's not gone, and there's people in my house. Like, I was really upset on Sunday, and she helped me understand. The therapist helped me understand that, hey, if you need to lock yourself in the room, do it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So she also told me that I've been wearing like masks, like, so people can see how strong I am. And
Right.
she said,
You wear them so that you present the face that people think they
yeah,
should be seeing.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That's what I feel
Yes.
like. Yeah.
And like, her knowledge is being very helpful for me. She's kind of opening my eyes, and oh yeah, that is happening. And she's really good, and she speaks Portuguese, speaks English. I'm happy I went after.
That
Good.
language piece is really important too. And, you know, it may only stand out for folks who are bilingual or trilingual, but that
Yeah.
idea of, and also just finding a therapist that's a right fit, like the fact that she understands your faith. I mean, the reality is you're not going to find a lot of therapists that know a lot about cystinosis or rare disease.
Yeah.
She didn't know, but she said, send me the link. I'm going to read about it. And
Right.
another thing she told me, because like every time I take my medicine, I drag myself to do it. I'm just like, these medicines are important. So when you take them, say thank you. Thank you that I have. Do the job that it does. She's like, I've been thinking so negative lately. She's like, put positive things into your head.
Yeah.
Say that these pills are going to work. These eye drops are going to clean my eyes. You know, like, pray into my body, and, you know, and thank that you have all these medications, and do positive thinking, because I just been like, okay, you know, I got to take it. And I've been dragging. But no, she's opening my eyes to be like, no, be thankful that you have these medications. We have options.
Yeah.
You know, like, and she's like, you do these drops, and when you do it, you're going to clean your body. They're going to do every single thing that they need to do. And you know, I took my blood about 2 weeks ago, and my bloods came back really well. Like my creatinine was like 2.4, and they were really worried, and I had to repeat labs. And like, this is when I started seeing her, and this last time I took my blood, my creatinine was 1.6. So it's like,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
you know, and I've been doing the same thing, but I've been positive thinking about my medication.
Our shorthand for that, and this is worth all of you thinking about, we call it flipping the script. Like, just say it differently. Find a different way.
Different, positive instead of negative, and
flip the script. You know, we talk a lot about something else that I really just learned. So we talk about the importance of self-talk, like how you talk to yourself, right? And so when you're doing therapy like Emily is, it sounds kind of like a cognitive behavioral kind of therapy, right? And you think about, how am I thinking and how is it making me react? And so we want people to think about how they talk to themselves. And we all talk to ourselves probably. Some of us do it out loud, some of us do it in our heads. But what I thought was really interesting that I read recently is when you talk to yourself, use your name. So don't say, oh, I got to do this. Say, Emily, it's time to do this. Because somehow that gives you a little bit of space away from like yourself, and yet gives you, and I was like, that's brilliant.
That is brilliant.
Right? It just gives you a little bit of room away. Yeah, it helps you step outside. And sort of
to stop eating pizza.
That positive, you know, how can I put this in a positive way?
Yeah. Or like when you've had enough pizza but you want one more. This is so serious, 100% serious too. It's like, okay, Emily, you've had enough. You know, because I've been guilty eating. I've been eating and eating, but I have to stop myself and say, Emily, you've had 4 pieces. That's it.
Right.
And
But it tastes so good, Emily.
Yeah.
I know, but it's not. It's
Emily,
good,
this tastes really good if I wrap it up in foil and put it in the oven tomorrow.
Yeah, apparently I'm no good for you, okay? I can't be I can't be your little spirit in the back, because I would tell you to do the wrong thing, okay?
Yeah.
Do other folks have things about, like, what's your self-talk like? What kind of messages do you give yourself as you're going through your day?
Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck, no.
That is not self-talk.
Excuse my language. I gotta change that. But like, I've been saying that a lot. Like, oh, fuck, you know.
Yeah, but you're getting it out.
Yeah, I'm not. I swear, I'm not a big swearer. Like, I'm not. You know, I don't swear a lot. But recently, I don't know what. I actually have to talk to my therapist. But I'm like, I don't swear. Why am I swearing right now? You know. But it's a way to get it out. You know.
Right.
Well, and it's the nicest way. Right? There's anger. Part of grief is anger, and getting it out. And so you're finding ways to get it out.
Yeah.
The nicest way possible, because you're Emily.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah.
I felt every single emotion, like, since April 22nd till today. It's been really, really hard, and I haven't accepted that he's gone yet, and it's just been really, really tough for me, you know. But let me stop before I, you know, do the waterworks.
Yeah.
I'm an ugly crier. I'll cry by myself, not in front of everyone.
Yeah.
I hope
you know that people know. I hope you know that people know and are feeling for you, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you do have a community, and I think everybody probably, and we've talked about this in this group before, right? We've had, you know, we have losses in this community all the time. And so for different folks, right, it hits differently, whether it's someone who you're really close to, or whether it's just like, oh gosh, somebody else with cystinosis. Right?
Yeah.
And it's really hard to talk about, but you know, that's something else that living with this particular disease, you kind of have to carry, right? And find ways to make peace with.
Yep,
You know,
that's right.
and find ways to feel like, okay,
Yeah.
how do I make the best of the time, right, that you have? How do you not let, life
Right.
get eaten up?
Because even if you don't know them, like being in this group, you know how hard they fought. You know how hard they were, like a warrior, like we've been calling ourselves. Do what you needed to do. It makes, even though I might not know them, it makes me so sad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Moment of silence.
Yeah, moment of silence.
Yeah.
Sometimes silence is good too, though.
Right. Right. Now, I have an odd question that I don't know if it has to do with mental health or not, but do you think that the people that want to learn and like be updated and into like their disease, like the people that we're looking for and advocating for, have an easier time of it? Information, I think my whole deal is information is power, so I think the more I know, the better I am. But some people seem like they don't want to know anything, and I don't
Yeah,
know.
some people I think that ignorance is bliss.
Yes.
I have
a sister. I have a
Yeah.
sister who has cystinosis who doesn't want to know anything. Okay,
I was
that's
gonna
kind
ask
of why
about this year because I saw your story, Karen, and I was thinking about
yeah.
I think it's a mixture thing, because the more you know, the more you can prepare for things and take the right medicine and stuff. But on the opposite end, if you learn something that you can't do anything about,
Yeah.
then it's just it weighs on you a little bit. Like I when you were talking about that, I was thinking about it's not really cystinosis related, but like when you're like watching the news lately, that
Yeah.
with stuff that's related to COVID-19.
Right.
On the one hand, it's good to be updated, but on the other hand, you also get like the numbers of like the that are climbing, and the fact that there's not that much updates, and the government dysfunction so it's like a double-edged sword to some extent, and I feel like cystinosis can feel like the same way sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like Steve, and I think it's a mixture, but I kind of look at it a little differently. With the studies and everything that's come about cystinosis, a lot of times they don't take account of what living life with cystinosis is, and sometimes it totally misses the mark. And when I talk to my doctors, and most of my doctors listen pretty carefully about things, I'll give them my version of something, and I can't always explain it medically, but I could explain it through experiences. And I just kind of think it's a little bit of both, and it's so weird. But when you have a doctor that's giving you numbers, percentages, and everything, but when you throw your own 2 cents in and they actually look at it and then take it into consideration, I guess that's kind of my example. I think it's a mixture of both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it can either be helpful or it can be overwhelming depending on the, I mean, I think that's something I don't know if you're all ALAB, so you probably all know this, but what Karen and Cheryl and I are working on later this week is we're doing this presentation at the Cystinosis Ireland conference, telling them about ALAB, telling them about what you guys are doing. And it's all researchers and clinicians. It's not families. It's just the docs and the scientists. And I think every opportunity we get to kind of get that personal experience to connect with the clinical stuff that they see is so important.
Yeah.
Because they don't always get the opportunity, or they're not, some of them just, that's not how they're trained. I think we're getting better. Like, I work in a medical school now, so I kind of get to see a little bit more how we're trying to kind of raise up the next crop of doctors. But, you know, it's hard because they don't hear that side. So every single opportunity you get to share that. And I think the mental health piece too, like, how do they understand what what mental health and quality of life is like when their focus is on, well, take these meds because that'll, you know, keep your levels good. Right? That's the focus of a medical visit.
Right.
So how do we kind of get that other stuff in there?
That's a good point. Yeah, when we were recording the this current episode of the podcast, talking to Dr. Grimm, he made a good point about the fact that when you come in to see a doctor, they only have this limited amount of time to see you, and they have to see all these other patients, and if they spend more time with you than with their other patients, sometimes they can get in trouble with their bosses and stuff. So it's hard to get in everything in that little, 20-minute, 30-minute or less slot that you have to try to get in there.
Yeah. I have to say, I've kind of just personally with my own care providers, I've started to see that some of the online systems, not just telehealth, but like the fact that you can send an email.
Yeah.
So like, I send my diabetes nurse an email when stuff's going on, just to say, I just want to let you know, do you have any suggestions? And so it's not a real visit. I don't need a full visit. Sometimes I just need a quick little response, or I just want her to know, like, hey, this is what I'm kind of struggling with something right now. And the fact that those windows have opened up a little bit, I think we have to think about how we can use that communication, because it used to be, you can't get to your doctor by email, you can't get to your doctor by phone. Now there's a little window to change communication.
Yeah, I have to say my physicians, I've been having a little bit of an issue this week, and I finally sent a message through my chart, they call it here, to my physician's assistant at the hospital, who I'm going to see in a couple of weeks anyways. And, I got a response the same day, and we got things set up for me the same day, and it took a load off, a little bit, like, okay, she knows exactly what you're saying, Maya. She knows now, this is the issue I have, and we're going to do this and this, and it kind of helps you. But yes, she, because I kept going, well, who should I call? Should I call? Which doctor should I call? What should I do? How should I do this? And it just ended. And she wrote me right back and said, okay, I think we should do this, this, and this. And I'm like, yay, thank you.
Yeah.
So it was,
taking that first step. And like, Emily, even for you, even though the list your docs gave you didn't get you the right person, it was a start of you saying, hey, I want to find somebody to provide this service. And even just asking, even just telling that one person, I think I need some other help or support, even if they don't end up providing it, like, you kind of open the door to, hey, I need help.
Yeah.
And as a therapist, and I don't do hourly therapy. That's never been my job. I always worked in the hospital, right, or in the clinics. And I saw people when they came in for their medical visits, but I never did a therapy visit. I'm actually thinking about, like, now we can do it online. I'm like, that's kind of awesome. I can do that anywhere. But we really notice, like, just making that appointment, taking that first step makes such a difference for people, because it's just like, okay, I have a little bit more control just by making an appointment or showing up the first time, because that's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
Now I have a question for everybody about their doctors. Since Karen kind of brought up that whole subject is my adult nephrologist, who I got just randomly because my doctor before him passed away. And he came from Ecuador. And the first thing he told me is he's never dealt with cystinosis. He said in medical school, they went over it for like a whole minute and then they were told, you'll never run into it because it's so rare. But he told me that he was willing to learn, and he says he could always treat the symptoms and everything. But since that day, Dr. Greenbaum came to Atlanta to work at the Children's Hospital, and I found out he saw adults. And I talked to my doctor about it, said, this guy is a specialist of cystinosis. I used to see him in UCLA. He was either a resident or a fellow a long time ago, I know, but he told me I had no other choice but to go see this guy too. But throughout our years, he became responsible that if I have anything just feeling weird or I need to see a different specialist, he takes it upon himself to find a specialist for me. And I just thought that was so cool. And he's kept his word. If I needed to go see a heart doctor, which I did actually, he says, well, there's this guy, he's the new upcoming, the to-do guy, I guess. And he set me up with him, and it's just, he's probably set me up like 5 or 6 different specialists now. And also, when I started seeing Dr. Greenbaum is now teaching my adult doctor a little bit about cystinosis, and he's going to be treating people in Georgia that become adults with cystinosis. And
That's great.
It's almost too good to be true that he is really passionate about his career. And he, I don't know, does anybody else's doctor kind of, oh, well, if you need anything or have these feelings or need to see a certain specialist or whatnot, he's on it. And I just thought that was so amazing. And I mean, he's kept his word. And there's a lot of people I hear from the online community, or I talk to a few people on private if they need to talk. But most of the things I hear from this is, well, my doctor won't listen to me. He's so stubborn. It's in my head. But when I tell them about my doctor, they almost don't believe me.
I
So
think
do y'all have that?
I mean, there's such a great network of docs that we know that are knowledgeable about cystinosis. And it almost feels like you have to network just the way you think about networking for a job. Like
Yeah.
we have to think about how do we leverage that network. So even if it's not somebody that lives in your state or can be a regular provider, somebody like Greenbaum or Grimm, I know Dr. Caskell's done this for people. I'm sure some of you have, even your peds nephrologists, like they'll pick up the phone and make phone calls if they know people, even if they're not your everyday doc. And let me tell you, I know that, you know, the thing about like, oh, we heard about it for 5 minutes in medical school, but now, like if you pick up the pediatric nephrology journal, I swear there is a cystinosis article in that journal every month. Because now I get them, anytime someone writes an article about transitioning, you know who gets to review it? Me.
Ah,
It's kind of funny. So like, I know.
so we have a secret inside source.
Exactly. So, but I put an alert on, I don't know if you guys use Google search, you know, the not Google search, Google Scholar, which is like the academic articles.
And
Well, you can set alerts. So anytime there's a new cystinosis article, I hear about it. I don't understand all of them, but I try, you know.
yeah,
Whether it's gene therapy, whether it's whatever, right? I like to know what's out there. And so there are researchers, there are people publishing. So for a doc to say, I haven't seen that since medical school, strikes me as lazy. Because it's not that hard now to sit down at your computer, do a little bit of searching, and there's good information. in the academic journals, on all the websites. Like, it's not, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe it was shaky. It's not shaky anymore. Like, there's
Mhm.
good information.
Yeah, for my psychiatrist, she knew, so she's not a family friend. She comes to the church, and she used to come to the church once or twice. She's in Brazil now. But she knew I had medical problems. She knew my backstory, but she didn't know that it's cystinosis. She didn't know what cystinosis was. So she asked for it. And I've ran into a couple of doctors, like the pulmonologist, who said, as soon as I came in, said, I never treated a patient with cystinosis, like you said, Eddie, but I've done my research. And that makes me feel so nice that doctor did his part,
Yeah.
He did his research, and he said, I don't see that cystinosis affects the lungs directly, but it does the muscles. So let's get you checked out. So he did his research, and my therapist is doing her research, and it's just nice to know that there are doctors out there and that are open to know more. And it's important too for us as advocates to participate in any type of awareness kind of thing. Like when I go to the Quinnipiac thing, I think it's important because those doctors, future doctors that are sitting there, and I said the word, and they heard cystinosis from me, maybe they're gonna run into someone, they're like, oh wait, cystinosis. Maybe it'll bring them back to that day that a patient with cystinosis spoke at Quinnipiac. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I've
it's
heard
being-
that story.
It's
I've heard that story so many times where people say there was a
being talked about.
or a resident that they're like, oh, I heard something in a lecture 2 months ago,
Yeah,
and maybe this is connected. And that sometimes that's a life-saving
that's what happened to
recognition.
me.
Yeah.
That's when I got diagnosed. I got transferred from one hospital saying there's nothing to do to another one where a doctor had heard of cystinosis and had heard that there was a medication being studied, because he was a nephrologist and he participated in conferences in America, and cystinosis was talked about. And I like to imagine that it was one of the older moms, like Laura's mom, or like I like to imagine that they were present and they saw my doctor and spoke to my doctor. I don't know if that's true, but I like to imagine it that way because they're still doing that. The moms with the kids with cystinosis.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
they done it back then. They did it back then, and I like to think it's because of them that came before me that notified my doctor that diagnosed me in Brazil when I was 18 months. Because he was like an angel to our family, because he had heard of cystinosis. He knew what he had to do. Let's give her a horse-sized potassium shot and get her heart pumping and start her on bicarb, start her on this, start her on that, and get you to California to get Cystagon,
Yeah.
So he had heard of it. So it's being talked about, and I'm just thankful for that doctor because I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I think there are docs in Brazil now because remember a couple of years ago they did a conference down
They
in
did, yeah.
Iguazu.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember who those folks are, but we can find out because there's probably good information also in Portuguese, right? Not just in English that you could share with her.
Yeah, I'd like that actually. I know you can check the cystinosis.org. You can pick the language. Did you notice that?
I did, but I don't know how much stuff is there yet.
Yeah, and I know the explanation is there because she was like, Emily, pray over your muscles, pray over your brain. So I think she had read it,
Yeah.
And she was listing all the things that cystinosis affects, and she's like, have that positive mind over it.
Yeah. And
like I grew up in the church and I grew up in prayer and believing in prayer, but just recently it was just like, and she's just uplifting me. And I
Yeah.
really, really needed that.
And I'm glad but I'm glad you mentioned prayer, because I think it's important to remember, not everybody has, spiritual practices, or not
Faith,
everybody goes to
exactly,
church or
yeah.
temple, but it's an important piece of our mental health, however you
Yeah.
practice it, however it fits in your life. And, and for some people it doesn't, but
Yeah,
making sure that if that's something that helps you and gives
yeah,
you strength, that's an
definitely,
important piece of that self-care and
definitely.
taking care of other people.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's a good
definitely.
distraction.
Yeah, definitely. And like, I was always so passionate about my faith. I was always so, and I just got cold. I don't know. I was trying to explain to her that I was always like that. I was always that positive person. But I don't know, like life happenings just got to me and put me in that hole. And I have that will to get that passion back, and hopefully this will help achieve it,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What else should we talk about? What else do we want to cover? We've only got about 10 more minutes.
Yeah,
So I have like a super random question.
do it.
Well, kind of random. So me and my boyfriend broke up like in October. So I'm trying to get myself back out there into the dating world. So like I just was wondering, like advice from you guys, like when you first started dating again, when was a good time for you to tell people about your cystinosis and your medical problems? Because I'm scared to like tell like the new person that I maybe start dating, hey, I have this. Like I don't want to scare them off right away.
Right.
Actually, for me, I don't tell people I have cystinosis right away. I just go at them or go at it like I mean, we don't go at it, but just
So you shared a lot, Eddie.
Eddie.
I let them get to know me first for at the very beginning. But when they start to ask questions like when they like, well, you just had a doctor's appointment, just this long ago. Why are you going again or whatnot? And I said, oh, it's just a checkup. And I said I had a kidney transplant is what I start with. And they're like, oh, is everything okay? It's like, yeah, I take this medicine. Or before my transplant, I used to say, hey, I have this kidney problem. I take this medicine and everything's all right. And then the more I get to know the person, the more info I will give them. I think if you start too fast, if you go on a date or a couple dates, hey, I have this disease called cystinosis and it's genetic and it's really rare, you could scare somebody off without getting to know you first.
Yeah.
So I just take it slow and when you feel comfortable sharing, whatever you want to share with them, it needs to come natural, not a priority.
Yeah. There's a couple different approaches to that. It depends how comfortable you are with the person. Like, I like to think if you're comfortable farting in front of them, then they'll be open to other things too, or like if you're gonna be serious with that person.
That's quite a statement.
Or two, and then there's
I can see that, yeah.
different approach. Like there's a different approach if you tell them right on, they still stick around. That's something too. Like you tell them off the bat. I never did that. Like, well, actually, no. For my ex-husband, I told him right off the bat, and he stuck around.
Didn't your mother tell him, Emily?
My mom sat him down. We sat. Everybody told him what could happen, and and he's like, no, yeah. And but like for Robbie, obviously he knew I had cystinosis, and then I don't know, different approaches depending how comfortable you are with that person. If you're gonna go serious, if you had like 10 dates and it still hasn't come up,
Not right now.
if you fart in front of them and they're comfortable, I think it's time, Let me share you my medical stuff too. So
Yeah.
My